Hey everybody, welcome to another CrushLivePoker.com hand review, and in this particular hand, we're going to be taking a look at a spot that I played against poker vlogger Mariano, and this comes from the September 25th episode from the Lodge live stream here in Austin. You can also see that Rampage is at the table, and on the last Saturday, they play a very big game that I was invited to, 2550. And we were playing with a mandatory straddle, so this is a 25, 50, 100 hand at about 15,500 effective. I had about 15.5k, and Mariano had me covered. Of course, you can watch all of the Lodge live streams over on their YouTube channel. They stream at least every Wednesday and Saturday, sometimes sprinkled in on Mondays as well. But the last Saturday of each month, we play this big game. And this was an interesting spot that I had the opportunity to play in that was pretty enjoyable and entertaining and makes for some great content. And it's going to start off here with Mariano, that overhead shot of Mariano here, opening it up from the hijack here to 300. Again, 25, 50, 100. I am in the small blind with 15,500. Gets folded over here to me, and I've got 10-9 of hearts. And you could say this is a little bit of a light 3-bet, but I decide to go 4x here. Mariano had been playing somewhat aggressively pre-flop. We hadn't had a whole lot happen in this particular show so far. I was within the first hour. So I'm going to 3-bet here to 1200, and this is where things probably get a little bit far from probably what we would see from optimal play here pre-flop. Mariano here with ace-jack offsuit decides to defend here for 900 more. I think it's pretty close. I think if you're in the cutoff for the button, you call. I might start to pitch against myself here in the hijack, but in a pure optimal sense, the button here is probably the only one that's called here with the ace-jack off. But he decides to take a flop. Everyone wants to get their VPIP up in these games, in these live stream games. And like I said, I made somewhat of a light 3-bet, although I'm very, very incentivized to play 3-bet or fold from the small blind with 2 blinds to my left because we were playing a 3-blind game. So we go to the flop, and it's $2,600 in the pot. You can see I've got 14.4k behind, and the board comes out 10-6-7. Now, I've run and looked at some sims for this hand. I've had some top section instructors take a look at this hand. And this is kind of interesting right off the bat here because I probably should be doing more betting here than checking on this dry board. I think at the time I was thinking, well, you know, I've got top pair. It's a weak top pair. I've got obviously a gut shot here to an 8. You know, I could bet and call if I were to get raised, but this board would probably tend to favor Mariano a little bit more, opening and then calling a raise, than it would me. So I decided to check. I think it's probably pretty close, but you could probably use a 1/3 sizing here on this flop. Now, once it gets checked over here to Mariano, you're going to see he has ace-jack offsuit here with the ace of spades. He's going to start a bet. This one's pretty close as well. Obviously, it's better to have a suited hand. Like if he had ace-jack of spades, or ace-jack of clubs, ace-jack of diamonds. You know, I think it's fairly good bet here for this sizing with backdoors. Here he's got the backdoor straight draw and ace-high. He obviously needs to get me off of a hand like ace-king, ace-queen by the river. So he starts a bet now here for $800. And obviously I'm not going anywhere to about 1/3 pot size. This is fairly standard here that I just check call. And here is where things get really, really interesting as we move to the turn. And the turn here is a 9, giving me 2 pair, and you can see the pot now is $4,200. So we've got a one-liner out here to a straight, and I kind of have a hidden 2 pair here. This is a really, really tough spot for me, actually, if I had decided to check some over pairs. Like I said, the hand is a little bit far from, you know, kind of an optimal approach because you probably should be doing a fair amount of betting on this particular board when it's rainbow, not so much when it's 2 flush. But if he takes a relatively large sizing, I would say over half the size of the pot, I think I have a pretty difficult time continuing on here with like queens, kings, something like that. Obviously, I can continue here with jacks because it's a gut shot here to an 8. So it definitely puts me in a tough spot when he bets. And if he started a bluff here with ace-jack, he's picked up, obviously, one of his backdoors. You know, the other card where he might pick up a draw would be obviously on a queen or a king. So he does have some backdoor stuff going on the flop. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense here for him to bet again. The other thing to keep in mind, and it's going to come into play, is the backdoor spade draw here too. He is going to take a bet, and this is where it becomes a little bit interesting here too, because he uses a very, very small sizing here of 1200. Now, obviously, this is going to get me off of a hand like ace, king, ace, queen. I might continue with a hand like ace, jack. I can't have backdoor spades here, so I'd have to have like ace, jack with a backdoor. But I think all ace highs here are pretty much going to fold, of course, unless I have like ace, eight, something like that. But even if I had like ace, seven, ace, six, ace, nine, it's still a pretty dicey continue for me, even to this small sizing. Overpairs are interesting here too. Because it is such a small sizing, I think I would continue with some, but once he starts to size a little bit larger on the turn, it's really hard for me to continue on with those hands. Obviously, with my hand, which is hidden, I'm certainly going to continue on here. Really, I'm only losing to an 8, and obviously a set. I block a set of 10s, I block a set of 9s. He could have 6s and 7s. It's also debatable whether he continues to bet those on the turn. Maybe he does most of the time, but I think I have a pretty easy call here as played. So I make the call here for 1200, and now all of a sudden we're at 6600 going to the river. And the river, I think, is one of the absolute worst cards for me in the deck. And I will tell you why as I check here on this king of spades at the end. Backdoor flushes, which is a part of his range, like if he did have like a hand like ace, jack of spades, something like that, they come in. Also, I can see him starting a barrel with hands like queen, jack here as well. He might also have, the occasional 8 too that he might have been betting off on the flop, like a 7, 8, something like that. But this is if he is structuring correctly, this is a really, really bad card for me, because he is going to have some backdoor flushes. And it also is important that he has the ace of spades, because he knows that I can't have a backdoor flush. If I'm doing some structuring correctly, I also have some backdoor flushes, but of course I can't have the nut flush when he has the ace of spades in his hand. So I check it over to him, and like I said, probably the only card that might be maybe worse for me here might be like the 8 of spades, something like that. I mean, possibly the queen of spades, but any one of those like spade types of cards that kind of complete a straight, the possibility of him starting a backdoor type of bluff on the flop, I think are really, really bad for me. Now, this is where I think that I got let off the hook a little bit here, because you can see the pot is 6,600, so I have just under 2 times the pot left, maybe 190% of the pot. He chooses to just bet 5,000 here, so 5,000 into 6,600, and you can see I don't like it, but I am going to be getting just over 2 to 1 here. Now, if he had bet all in, I would be getting a much, much worse price. If he had gone 12.4K all in, the pot would have been 19,000, and obviously 12.4 for me to call, I would have been getting only about 1.5 to 1. What's interesting about his combination, as I've taken a look at this hand a lot, and his combo, I think that the play here for him with his specific hand is to move all in. Now, if he does move all in, I think that starts to get him away from really having any 8x for value. It's a pure sort of polarization play. And if you wanted to stay balanced, you would do that with your backdoor flushes as well. The interesting part, though, here for this sizing is that I think for this sizing, my hand is a pure call, and I was correct, and I had sort of the answer confirmed in an optimal setting. Obviously, we're not playing optimal, but this is live poker, but I think that Mariano is trying to play well. If he were to bet all in, then my hand would be a very, very difficult call, and I'd probably be entirely indifferent. What's interesting here is if he takes the large sizing, now actually I want to do some calling with one pair of hands that block some of those straights and block some of those backdoor flushes. So if he had moved all in here, I would probably be more apt to call with queen, queen with a spade, jack, jack with a spade, things like that, as opposed to 10-9. But now because he uses that 5K sizing, I just get a better price. And it's possible that he could have an 8 maybe for this type of sizing, but he doesn't just get to bet off all 8s, liberally no matter what, because if I'm structuring correctly, I do have some backdoor flushes. But obviously I knew that he was capable. I didn't like the river, but I figured, you know what, am I good here? 1 out of, say, 2.25 times, also 2 from an MDF perspective. He's risking just under the size of the pot, which means that he needs to have his bluff go through maybe 45% of the time for it to be profitable, which means that I need to call with about, 60% of the hands that I get here with. But it is interesting, though, if he goes even larger, that I want to look for those hands that block what he is representing, which is, again, queens with the queen of spades, jacks with the jack of spades, something like that. But I put it all together. Obviously, it's a very, very high stakes game. I know that he is capable. I didn't necessarily like it all that much, but I did end up putting in the call here at the end. And I was very, very happy to see that he turned over the ace jack with the ace of spades. So this was certainly a fun one. I plan on playing on the Lodge again at the end of the month on October 30th. Again, you can check out their YouTube channel over at Lodge Poker. You can just do a search on Lodge Live Poker. And if you want to learn how to make these types of calls with two pair on a very, very scary board, check out my training site, CrushLivePoker.com, and take a look in the description. Use the coupon code to check out the site for the first month for free.